What happens in the afterlife? Tibetan Book of the Dead, revelations and ancient secrets revealed. Have you ever wondered what really happens at the moment of death? What if there was an ancient guide, a spiritual map, capable of guiding our consciousness through the unknown? The Tibetan Book of the Dead, one of humanity's most enigmatic texts, introduces us to the bardos, which are states of existence between death and rebirth, according to the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Remember this word, it will be important for the explanations here. In this video, we will explore 1. The moment of death, a flash of pure consciousness that reveals our true essence. 2. The bardo of visions, where deities, which are divine or sacred beings, appear that, although they may seem terrifying or peaceful, are manifestations of our own mind. 3. The bardo of rebirth, how our thoughts and actions shape our future, influencing the next life. Get ready for a journey that combines ancient spiritual wisdom with modern discoveries about near-death experiences and the science of consciousness. How can these ancient practices change your perspective on life right now? What about you? Are you ready to face the truth about your own mortality? Leave your questions and reflections in the comments and share this video with those who need to know this ancient wisdom. Subscribe to Gaia's Ascension for more content that challenges the mind and touches the soul. What is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the spiritual map of death? Imagine standing in front of a map that reveals the path of your soul after death. Not a physical map, but a spiritual guide that promises to guide your consciousness through the unknown. A true manual for the afterlife. This is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, also known as the Bardo Thodol. Today, you will discover what lies behind this ancient text, its profound messages, and why it still fascinates mystics, scientists, and spiritual seekers around the world. What is the Tibetan Book of the Dead? The Bardo Thodol, which literally means liberation by hearing in the intermediate state, is a sacred text of Tibetan Buddhism. Created in the 8th century by the master Padmasambhava, it was originally used as a guide recited by monks close to someone who had just died. Its purpose? To guide the soul through the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. In the Buddhist context, bardo means a gap or transition, where consciousness is no longer attached to the physical body, but has not yet been reborn. During this period, the soul experiences extraordinary visions, sounds, and sensations, manifestations of what exists within the mind itself. Unlike Western views that treat death with fear or mystery, the Tibetan Book of the Dead sees death as a natural process. Just as life has stages, death also has its own. The book divides this journey into 3 main bardos. 1. The bardo of the moment of death. This is the moment when life says goodbye to the physical body. According to the text, consciousness experiences a flash of pure light, an opportunity to achieve liberation, the so-called nirvana. This is the most important moment, because if the practitioner is prepared, he or she can free himself or herself from the cycle of rebirths, known to us as the wheel of samsara. 2. The bardo of visions. Here, peaceful and wrathful deities, who are divine or sacred beings, appear, representing different aspects of the mind. The peaceful deities appear first in luminous and beautiful forms. Soon after, the wrathful deities appear, which can seem terrifying. The secret, recognizing that all these visions are manifestations of the mind and not real threats. 3. The bardo of rebirth. In this final stage, consciousness seeks a new physical body. Your actions and thoughts in life, known to most of us as karma, these influence the next existence. So we can ask ourselves, why is this knowledge still relevant today? Why does a text written more than 1,000 years ago still matter to me? I answer you. The answer lies in the intimate relationship we have with the unknown, the fear of death. Nowadays, near-death experiences, known as near-death experiences, the famous NDE, this fact has intrigued doctors and scientists all over the world. Reports of bright lights, feelings of peace, and even encounters with beings are common and closely resemble what the Bardo Thodol describes. This raises a powerful question. Are these events simply products of the mind, or are they evidence of a deeper spiritual reality? In addition, the text offers valuable lessons for life. It teaches us the importance of detachment and full awareness in the present moment. It prepares the mind to face not only death, but also the daily little deaths, the end of a cycle, a loss, or a personal transformation. To humanize this wisdom, consider the story of Peter Fenwick, a renowned neuropsychiatrist who studied near-death experiences. Patients reported in surprising ways visions of light, peace, and reunions with deceased family members, descriptions that echo what Tibetan monks have taught for centuries. These stories show that even in the age of science, the Tibetan Book of the Dead continues to make sense. What if you could prepare yourself for the most important moment of your existence? What would it be like to face death without fear, knowing that it is just a passage? The Tibetan Book of the Dead invites us to look at death differently, not as the end, but as an opportunity to awaken to something greater. What about you? Have you ever thought about what happens after we close our eyes to this life? Leave your thoughts in the comments and share this video with those who need to understand that death is not the end. It is just the beginning of a new journey. Subscribe to the Ascension of Gaia channel to continue exploring humanity's greatest spiritual and scientific mysteries. After all, what we know about death can transform the way we live. The moment of death, the first bardo. What really happens at the exact moment we die? What if death were not the end, but merely a transition? Imagine that, as you close your eyes for the last time, you are faced with an instant of light so bright and intense that all your certainties are called into question. This is the beginning of the first bardo, the initial stage described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the most crucial moment in the spiritual journey. According to the Bardo Thodol, the first bardo is the moment of death, the moment when consciousness separates from the physical body. It is at this moment that, according to Tibetan Buddhist teachings, the soul or pure consciousness, called Rigpa, can glimpse its true nature. The description of this moment is fascinating. A pure, brilliant light emerges. This light, according to Tibetan monks, represents nirvana, the highest state of spiritual liberation. For those who are prepared, whether through spiritual practice or conscious living, this light is a unique opportunity to escape the cycle of rebirth, samsara. But for most, this light is frightening. The unknown, coupled with attachment to earthly experiences, causes many to look away and miss this opportunity. Interestingly, the descriptions in the Tibetan Book of the Dead bear striking similarities to modern accounts of near-death experiences, NDEs. People who have been declared clinically dead but have come back to life report seeing a bright, peaceful light at the end of a tunnel. A sense of indescribable peace, as if all worries had disappeared. A feeling of floating outside the body, observing oneself and the environment around oneself. Neuroscientist Sam Parnia, an expert in NDE studies, note that these experiences transcend cultural and religious boundaries, suggesting something deeper than simple hallucinations. Could these descriptions be a glimpse into what Tibetans call the first bardo? Why is the first bardo so important? According to Tibetan Buddhism, the moment of death defines the soul's destiny. If the consciousness is calm, detached, and prepared, It can recognize the light as part of itself and free itself. But if the mind is confused, full of fears and attachments, the journey becomes turbulent. Imagine a person who has spent his entire life accumulating material wealth, but ignoring his spiritual development. At the moment of death, this person may feel panicked as he realizes that all his possessions are no longer of value. Attachment and fear prevent him from seeing the light, and his soul enters a cycle of illusion and suffering. On the other hand, think of someone like the Tibetan spiritual masters who spend their lives preparing for this moment. They describe death not as an end, but as an awakening, a natural transition that should be faced with equanimity. Let's bring this closer to you. Learn about the case of Anita Moorjani, a woman who experienced an NDE while in a deep coma. Anita reported seeing a light so intense that she felt an unparalleled peace. During her experience, she said that her attachment to her worries and fears disappeared, and she was able to glimpse a reality much greater than earthly life. When she returned, Anita described this experience as the deepest truth of who we are. She concluded that preparing for death begins with detachment and loving life. The Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches us that life and death are not opposites, but parts of the same journey. Therefore, we must 1. Accept death as natural. Prepare the mind to face the unknown without fear. 2. Cultivate inner peace. Detachment and meditation help us face the transition with serenity. 3. Recognize the light. The light that emerges in the first bardo is our true nature, pure, unchanging, and eternal. The moment of death is the key to spiritual liberation, but it requires preparation, courage, and self-knowledge. Have you ever wondered how you would face this moment? How would you prepare yourself to see the light? The Bardo of Visions, facing our fears. Imagine being in a place where the world we know dissolves, and we are confronted with visions so intense that they can seem real. On one side, luminous and peaceful figures, as if emanating an infinite calm. On the other, terrifying and dark images that make us feel small and helpless. This is the Bardo of Visions, the second stage described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. What do these visions mean? Are they angels or demons? And most importantly, how do we face these manifestations? According to the Bardo Thodol, after the moment of death, the first Bardo, consciousness enters a new phase, the Bardo of Visions. In this stage, peaceful and wrathful deities appear, divine beings described as symbolic manifestations of the mind itself. Here, the individual sees a sequence of images that can be both fascinating and frightening. The wisdom of Tibetan Buddhism teaches us a shocking truth. There are no external deities. All these visions are internal projections, reflections of what we have accumulated in our lives. Fears, desires, love, hate, everything manifests itself. It works like this. 1. The peaceful deities. They appear first in harmonious forms, emitting soft and calming lights. They represent inner peace, wisdom, and purity of mind. Whoever recognizes these deities as internal manifestations can reach the state of nirvana. 2. The wrathful deities. Soon after, monstrous and terrifying figures appear, like demons that attack or persecute us. They represent our fears, traumas, and dark aspects unresolved during life. The central message here is powerful. What we see in the Bardo of Visions is the reflection of our own mind. Those who understand this do not feel fear because they realize that these figures have no real existence. Have you ever had a nightmare so real that when you woke up, your heart raced and your adrenaline pumped? During the dream, those images seemed concrete, even though they were creations of the subconscious. The Bardo of Visions works the same way, only in a spiritual dimension. Modern science, through the study of lucid dreams and the psychology of the unconscious, confirms that our mind creates its own realities. Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, believed that the symbols seen in dreams are representations of universal archetypes, mirroring the deepest aspects of our psyche. The key to getting through the bardo of visions, according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is recognition. When we see something frightening, we must remember that 1. These images are creations of our mind. 2. They have no real power over us unless we give that power to them. 3. Acceptance and detachment are the paths to liberation. This teaching applies to everyday life as well. Facing our fears means looking within and recognizing that we often create them ourselves. To illustrate, consider someone who has had a near-death experience, NDE. Stories from people who have experienced extreme situations reveal visions of benevolent or terrifying figures. Often these experiences reflect the person's emotional and spiritual state at the time. One survivor recounted, "At the height of my fear, I saw a shadow chasing me. Only when I stopped running and faced it did I realize that the shadow was just a reflection of my own fear." This lesson teaches us something fundamental. We don't run from our fears, we face them. The bardo of visions challenges us to face what we carry in our minds and hearts. It is a powerful mirror that reflects our shadows, but also our light. What about you? Have you ever faced your own fears, whether in dreams, in life, or in moments of introspection? The bardo of rebirth, what shapes our next life? Imagine that you are standing before a door, but this time there is no choice. It must be opened. On the other side, a new life awaits you. Your fears, desires, and past actions begin to shape the reality that you will live next. This is the bardo of rebirth, the third and final stage described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But how does it work? Who or what defines our next existence? And more importantly, what can we learn from this process to transform our current life? In Tibetan Buddhism, the bardo of rebirth is the stage where the soul, after passing through the previous bardos, prepares to assume a new physical body. Here, destiny is shaped by karma, that is, the actions, thoughts, and intentions cultivated during life. Unlike linear views of heaven and hell, Tibetans believe that the afterlife reality is a continuous cycle, an eternal return based on who we choose to be. Our decisions create our next journey. To better understand, these are the 4 stages of the bardo of rebirth. 1. The search for a new body. The soul, still confused, begins to look for a place to be reborn. This process is shaped by the desires and attachments that the mind carries. If a person has lived with anger or greed, he or she tends to be drawn to existences that reflect these states. 2. Karma as a compass. Here, karma functions as a spiritual compass. Negative actions generate challenging experiences, while good actions bring more harmonious existences. It is not punishment, but a natural consequence. We reap what we sow. 3. The illusions of rebirth. The soul can cling to illusory images and fall into confused states. Visions of parents or attractive places appear, and the spirit, without clarity, is led to a new birth. It is like choosing a path in the fog without seeing clearly. 4. Entering a new body. The moment of rebirth is described as an unconscious choice, where the soul's energy connects to a fetus or body. Tibetans believe that this connection is determined by the soul's mental and emotional patterns. Now, think about your own life. How often do we make decisions based on fear, desire, or attachment? The bardo of rebirth is not just an afterlife concept, but a powerful metaphor for the deaths and rebirths we experience every day. A breakup, the loss of a job, or even a personal transformation, These moments offer us the chance to be reborn better or to get lost in repetitive cycles. For example, consider someone who sabotages themselves in relationships because of past insecurities. Each new relationship is a rebirth, but if the mind does not evolve, the toxic patterns return, as in spiritual karma. What does this teach us? That our lives today shape tomorrow. One famous case is that of Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist who studied children with past life memories. In a powerful account, a child described his previous life in detail, including names, places, and events. This case, among many others, suggests that the bardo of rebirth may be more than a spiritual belief. It may be connected to realities still unknown to science. What can we learn from the bardo of rebirth? 1. Take responsibility for the present. Your actions and thoughts today are the seeds of your future. 2. Practice detachment. Attachments and disordered desires obscure clarity at the time of great transitions. And 3. Renew your journey. Each day offers an opportunity to be reborn better, breaking negative cycles. The bardo of rebirth teaches us that we are the architects of our destiny, whether in this life or in the next. Are you ready to shape your journey consciously? What the Tibetan Book of the Dead teaches us about life. Imagine having a manual that teaches us not only how to die, but also how to live more fully and consciously. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, with its teachings on the bardos, the transitional states between death and rebirth, brings lessons that go far beyond post-mortem spirituality. In fact, it offers us a powerful mirror to reflect on our lives, our choices, and how we deal with the fear of the unknown. The great revelation is this: understanding that death teaches us how to live. Even though it is an ancient sacred text, the Bardo Thodol remains relevant because it addresses something we all share: death and impermanence. The fear of the end is universal, but the book invites us to look at death not as an enemy, but as a guide to personal transformation. In a modern world, where we live constantly distracted and busy, we often forget what really matters. How many times do we fail to say what we feel? How many opportunities do we miss out on because of fear? The central teaching of the Tibetan Book of the Dead is that full awareness of the present can transform our lives and our deaths. Essential lessons the book offers us. 1. Accept impermanence. Everything in life is transitory: joys, sorrows, good times and bad. Just as the bardos are temporary stages, our lives are also a cycle. Accepting this helps us live with less attachment and suffering. 2. Acknowledge your fears. In the bardo of visions, we are confronted with our shadows and fears. The book teaches us that running away is not the solution. Facing what scares us is the path to inner peace, and this is true for life. Our problems only disappear when we face them. 3. The importance of self-knowledge. At the moment of death, the mind becomes a mirror that reflects everything we carry within us. Living with self-awareness and purpose prepares us not only for death, but also for a more meaningful life. 4. Cultivate good deeds and intentions, karma. The bardo of rebirth reminds us that our choices shape our future. Whether small or large, they all have an impact. Living with kindness, generosity, and compassion creates a positive legacy. 5. Live in the present moment. Death shows us that tomorrow is uncertain. What we truly have is now. Cultivating presence in the present moment is the key to a fulfilling life. To understand this in a practical way, consider the stories of people who have faced near-death experiences, NDEs. Many report that, upon coming back, they began to value every second of their lives. Small concerns became less important, and their focus became on real relationships, love, gratitude, and purpose. A striking example is the account of Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon who described a spiritual journey while in a deep coma. He said, "Death is not the end, but a transformation, a chance to return to the essence of who we really are." These experiences show that when we confront mortality, we gain clarity about what really matters. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is not just about death. It is an invitation to reflect on the life we are leading and the person we want to be. If we understand that life is a temporary cycle, we can choose to live with more purpose, less fear, and more gratitude. What about you? How are you preparing your mind and heart for this inevitable journey? Leave your thoughts in the comments and share this video with those who need to hear this message. Subscribe to the Ascension of Gaia channel and follow content that awakens the mind and feeds the soul. After all, living with purpose is the greatest gift we can give ourselves.